PvP in Deadside can be a challenge, especially to new players. There are so many options for weapons and map locations that generally no two fight is the same. Game knowledge is one of the most important factors going into a fight, and the more things you are able to use to your advantage, the higher the chance it is you are going to walk out of that fight alive. Now, I might not be the best PvPer out there, but I'm not afraid to claim that I am a decently good player. I have lots of experience and I'm very knowledgeable about how this game works. So, the goal of this video is for me to pass on some of that knowledge to you. I do want to quickly mention that right after this video goes up, I'm going to be doing my first ever stream on Twitch. I'm going to be playing some Deadside at first, and then probably hop on to some other game afterwards. I'm new to streaming, it's going to be my first stream ever, so hopefully it goes well, but it should be a good time. So when you're done watching this video, come hang out in the stream. First, I want to talk about some basic stuff. If you're a bit experienced in PvP, some of this might be kind of obvious to you, and don't worry, I'll be covering some more advanced stuff you probably don't know about later in this video. But for now, let's talk about weapon handling. In a lot of different shooters, strafing is common and encouraged, but in Deadside, it is extremely difficult and it will sometimes get you killed. When you move, aiming down sights or not, the weapon in your hands will sway around. Some weapons will sway more than others, but generally the reticle will sway enough that it is extremely difficult to hit your target effectively. It gets even worse when you start to consider the aim punch from getting shot, so generally whenever you're shooting at somebody in Deadside, it is best just to stand still. This will make it a lot easier to control the recoil and stay on target. Sometimes when you're close enough to a person that you're shooting at, it kinda won't matter if you're strafing or not, but I would say if you're more than 25 meters away from your target, just don't move at all. It also helps to crouch because it reduces the recoil and sway of your weapon just by a little bit. I know if you're coming from other shooters, this could be a little bit hard to get used to, but it's better than strafing around and missing all your shots while your enemy is just sitting there crouched spraying you down. So, because movement is more limited in Deadside, this places a lot more importance on your positioning. Having a good position is extremely relative to the position of your enemy, and a very important part of PvP is knowing if you are in a good position or a bad position going into a fight. A good position needs to have these three things. First, it obviously needs to have some cover so that you can heal and reload. This should be pretty obvious. Second is an angle on the enemy so that you can return fire or track their movement. And finally, third is a safe way to retreat or move to a different position. The more of each one of these three things, the better, because it gives you more options to move and makes you less predictable. It's pretty simple on paper. All you gotta do is think about these three things: cover, angles, and retreats. But in the moment, it gets a lot more complicated. Let's take a look at some example positions. This is a tree. It has very little cover, only two possible angles to peek an enemy, and not really any good place to retreat to, considering all the other positions are just more trees, so not a great position. This is a sniper tower. This is a bit better than a tree. It has a lot more cover, it has multiple angles to fire at enemies, but it only has one very obvious way to retreat, and that is down the stairs. An enemy can easily camp you or push you into a kill box with something like a grenade or an IED, so all in all, it's still not that great of a position. This is the big tower at the South Factory. It has tons of good cover from every enemy position, many different angles to peek enemies from, and multiple different routes to retreat. You can walk on the outside stairs, down the main stairs, or go into the next building next to it through the connector. This is an extremely good position. Like I said, a position is only good relative to the position of your enemy, and it's up to you in the moment to figure that out and reposition if you need to. Next, let's talk about something a bit more complicated that most of you don't know about, because everything I've talked about so far, most of you probably understand. I just recently discovered that your arms have their own stamina. I have no idea when they added this. I feel like it's recent because I swear I tested for it right after the last update, but whatever, that doesn't really matter. Basically, depending on how much you've been sprinting or holding your breath, your weapon is going to sway more or less. You might notice that right after doing one of those two things, your character will be breathing heavily for a time, which sounds like this. While your character is out of breath, your weapon will sway more, but if you don't sprint or hold your breath for a while, your weapon will eventually stabilize. This won't really be that important in a lot of situations, because like I said, most of the time you're just going to want to stop moving and crouch shoot anyways, but if you're in an area where you're expecting some close range PvP, it's not a bad idea to stop sprinting for a bit and just slowly walk around. That way you can be ready for any firefights that are about to happen. You will also make a little bit less noise, but most of the time that won't matter. But I guess it is a nice bonus. Now, one of the most important tips of this video is going to be this one: getting information. Usually in Deadside, the person who wins a fight is the person who sees the other one first. So you want to do everything in your power that you can to spot other players before they spot you. A lot of this is just simply predicting player movement. If you can guess where the most likely place that a player will show up from, it'll make finding players a lot easier instead of just searching all your surroundings at once. This is where using your map becomes very important. If you keep an eye on what events are getting completed and what events are failing, you can get a general idea where players are moving around. For example, if you see a lot of easy and medium missions getting completed around the central areas of the map, you know that there's probably a lot of low-geared players in that area. This can be useful if you're trying to get into some PvP so that you don't end up wandering around with areas that nobody's in. Using your map can also be very helpful when predicting where enemy players can be showing up from. Generally, players will be moving directly from one point of interest to another one, usually from safe zone to another location and then back. So let's say you're at a heli crash in the east of the map, you can probably guess that the majority of the enemy players will be coming directly from the west towards the safe zone. It's still important to watch all the other angles because players don't strictly move along set paths, but just being able to predict the movement of an enemy before you see them can give you a huge advantage in the fight, because then you have time to find a good position and you can prepare for the engagement. This gets a lot easier with time as you play more and figure out how players will be moving, but early into your Deadside experience, just keeping this concept in mind can help you out a lot. Now, finally, the last thing that I want to talk about is gear and teammates. It's no secret that using the best gear in the game with a full squad will give you a huge advantage in PvP. You can get so much more advantage with some extra pairs of eyes, and having heavy armor and high damage weapons can allow you to just completely steamroll the majority of the players on the server. There's just less risk involved because even if you die, you most likely will be able to get your gear back anyways because your teammates are going to cover for you. However, running in a geared squad can actually start to limit you as a player, and can be detrimental to your skills as an individual. That is, if you do it too much. You can start to become dependent on either the numbers advantage or the gear advantage to do well in PvP. I know this from experience. Back when I was first getting heavily into Deadside, when I finally got some good gear, I started running it with a full squad. We did really well and I started running with the squad all the time. I was using weapons like the VSD and M99 with full armor, getting plenty of kills to show for it. And after doing that for probably a week or two, I started running solo again, and I noticed I did a lot worse in PvP. I was making a lot of bad decisions, my aim was a lot worse, and I realized I had started depending on my squad and good gear to do well in fights. Because playing that way just requires less effort, I stopped improving in some areas and I was out of practice in a few of the other ones. Now that doesn't mean I stopped improving overall though. Learning to work with a squad and learning to use the high tier gear is also important to your overall skills as a player, but it's really important to build your skills in all areas of Deadside with every level of gear and teammates in order to do well. The last thing you'd want is to become limited to that gear or that amount of teammates because you won't always have them. It's really important to know how to do well with guns like the Scorp or the double barrel shotgun if you want to do well during a fresh wipe. And you need to know how to solo enemy squads in case your squad goes down during a fight. I'm not saying to never use good gear or to never play in a squad. You absolutely should, it's tons of fun. I'm just saying that if you want to improve as a player, explore all the different modes of play in Deadside and keep doing it until you get comfortable in each. Don't let yourself fall into the habit of using these really good advantages, because you can start to become dependent on them. So, if you have any questions, leave them down in the comments for me and I will answer them. Other than that, come hang out in my stream. I'll be live about half an hour after this video goes up at twitch.tv/loafds. I'll have a link in the description of this video, and I will also have links to my Deadside server and my Discord server. Other than that, thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed, and I will catch you guys in the next one.